You don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great. Has cricket transformed into a game of boxing? I'll tell you more about this as our show progresses today. Good evening and welcome. This is Face the Nation. Nice to have you on board today as well on Friday at 7:30 p.m. right here at Stein Studios in Ratmalana. Our topic of discussion today is Sri Lanka cricket and its future. Our viewers may be aware that the cricket elections are scheduled for the 3rd of January next year. We are a few days away from the elections and we believe that it is quite topical to talk about the future of Sri Lanka cricket in this island nation. Let me introduce our guest this evening. Onto our left is Mr. Ajit Jayasekara, former CEO of Sri Lanka Cricket. Also joining us this evening is Mr. Kushal Gunasekara, Vice President of the Sri Lanka Cricket Interim Committee, as well as Mr. Hemanta Warnakulasuriya, who is a President's Counsel, joining us this evening as a cricket fan. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us this evening. Let's start off with Mr. Kushal Gunasekara. Mr. Gunasekara, you all have been active for the last 9 months or so, and the cricket committee was dissolved by the former minister, that is Navin Dissanayake, stating that there is corruption and work needs to be done. How far have you all progressed on this pledge that was made by the former minister of sports? Your time starts now. You have 3 minutes.
Well, this is my 4th interim committee attempt. We've never got involved in contesting or coming through elections, but what we try to achieve is whenever there is a problem, I don't know what the problems are, but it appears to be what they term as badly managed, and then the interim committees are asked to take over and put it into perspective and make the correction. What we can say is that when we went in, we looked at what we have to do. We always know we are in the interim. So we have to quickly work out a solution in terms of getting a business plan done to deliver whatever our vision is. So we went there, and we have this interim committee Vision 1515 to look at all the areas that we need to take action and elevate the standards. So I think in the 9 months that we've been there, and I know it's our last few days, we've done a fair bit in terms of all the areas that has been assigned to us. We've been exploring different areas of productivity, and I've brought in a list of about 40 areas that we have achieved as of now. There's always so much to do, but in 9 months it's never easy to get everything done as we had originally envisaged. But all I can say is that the list is truly impressive, and we have set certain standards that need to be carried forward, whoever comes. I'm sure everybody wants to contribute towards making the game better. It's all about improvement and striving for excellence. So the standards...
What changes, Mr. Gunasekara, have you all done? You said change has been envisaged. What changes have you really brought to the table over the last 9 months?
Well, I think mostly being accountable, transparent, and looking at developing the game in the right direction, saving funds as opposed to budgeted expenditure.
Saving funds. We played a few tournaments in the last 9 months or so. How much have you saved in terms of...
It's a very interesting question, because Pakistan tour was the first, and I'm also the chairman of tour organizing, and if I'm not mistaken, historically it is the first time that we have had a 87 million surplus on the Pakistan tour. So that was a great achievement, and I think overall in the last 7 months our saving on the budgeted expenditure, which was done previously by the other administrators, is about 517 million.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gunasekara. Mr. Kushal Gunasekara, Vice President of the Sri Lanka Cricket Interim Committee. I now move on to Mr. Ajit Jayasekara, former CEO of Sri Lanka Cricket. The current interim committee has been able to save 87 million rupees, a surplus in terms of the Pakistani tour. Corruption is a major allegation against Sri Lanka cricket, Mr. Jayasekara. What went wrong over the last few years or so in terms of Sri Lanka cricket? Why didn't we make this amount of surpluses that we're talking about now before? The time starts now.
Corruption is a fairly strong word you have used. Basically it is to do with money, correct, or any other type of corruption. But strangely we found that the treasurer of the last executive committee was also in the interim committee, as was another member who was charged for corruption by the ICC anti-corruption unit. So that it was a strange combination. But where funds are concerned, I cannot dispute what Mr. Kushal Gunasekara has said, because I do not know right now what the figures are. But in any administration, an executive committee or interim committee, whatever, the income depends on the tour program for that year. So I am sure the monies that they spent or saved or whatever are monies that were arranged by the previous executive committee. So,
Mr. Jayasekara, in terms of saving money, during your tenure as the CEO of Sri Lanka Cricket, how much money did you all save from tours?
That I do not have the figures off the top of my head, but it was every year depends on the income from television. Television deal is the most important thing for a cricket board, because on for example certain years, say a good team, like when I say good, a team with a demand like India, if they come, we will get a lot of money. For example, in 2017 we are due to get $17 million for the Indian tour. But this time we had India here for 3 test matches, and I believe they got less than $3 million. So all depends on the tours that we get and the television income. So it's difficult. You can't take a broad brush and paint right across the board and say there was corruption. This is the perception that people have, and I think it's I'm convinced that it is an unfair perception.
When you handed over your post to the present interim committee, what was the deficit or the debt looking like, Mr. Jayasekara?
As I said, I don't have the figures off the top of my head, but I handed over in 2013 to Ashley De Silva, and then I became the director of the Sri Lanka Premier League.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jayasekara, former CEO of Sri Lanka Cricket, also known as Mr. Cricket in Sri Lanka. We obviously will be talking more to Mr. Gunasekara as well as Mr. Jayasekara as the day progresses. We have with us President's Counsel, Mr. Hemantha Warnakula-Surya, who is joining us this evening as a lawyer as well as a cricket fan. Mr. Warnakula-Surya, I started off this show today saying that cricket has transformed into a game of boxing. This evening there was an unfortunate incident involving 2 individuals of Sri Lanka Cricket. One is a contestant. There was an assault, and an individual had gone to the Cinnamon Gardens police and even lodged a complaint. Is it the gentleman's game that we are witnessing at present?
The concept of cricket being a gentleman's game has long been forgotten and put into the limbo. I believe this scenario that took place today shows the standard of cricket, the standard of people who aspire to become office bearers, and the cricket board itself, because this is symbolic of a national trait where people think they can box another person out, they can hit another person out, and then still become supreme and then win election. So my perception is that the fact that the cricket which we adore so much, the game, which was a gentleman's game, has been transformed into a boxing match or into a match between the underworld thugs by various people who held various positions.
What is the reason for this?
Reason for the money. Now, for instance, I remember after the World Cup, when we won the World Cup, I also happened to be there at the ground, and I saw a former minister, without even an invitation, jumping onto the podium and trying to take the trophy from Arjun Ranatunga. And there was pandemonium. He tried to shake hands with Bhutto, and various things happened. Soon afterwards, when everyone was interested in Sri Lankan cricket, then there was a scandal involving the same minister, where he had demanded $50,000 from the person who entered into a contract to do the television rights, and the whole thing appeared in the Sunday Leader paper. Asam Vikramadunga edited it, and so therefore it was $50,000 then. Now it's about $1 million. Sometimes the stake is of $1 million or $2 million. So it's enormous amount of money. So everyone will want to fight and become an administrator, not because they are interested in cricket, but they want to make money. And I personally feel that unless there is some punitive action taken on this whole administration, nothing will happen. Now, in fact, you asked a very important question. The former minister of sports appointed the interim committee to look into the allegation of corruption against the previous committee. But there has been no allegation, no inquiry, nothing has happened, and we do not know whether any report was submitted. So, I mean, this allegation of corruption was a ruse to dissolve that committee and appoint another committee. And all this happens when they are about to sign an agreement with the television broadcasters.
Mr. Varankulsuri, you said something very interesting about the future of the game. You said about what happened in 1996. I want to know, Mr. Varankulsuri, do you think that during the last 1 year we have had 3 ministers? We've had a sports minister of the UPFA regime, we had another sports minister appointed after the January 8th elections, then we had another sports minister being appointed after the August 17th general elections. Does Sri Lanka cricket have a direction?
No, obviously the appointment of ministers happens because of the change of government. You can't help it. But the direction, I believe, the Sri Lankan cricket, the committees and the others who administrators must have a direction. I personally feel that the direction is to make money.
Thank you very much, Mr. Varankulsuri. Before moving on to the journalist round, I want to pose a question to Mr. Kushal Gunasekara. Allegations were somewhat leveled against the present interim committee as well. I want to give you a fair chance to answer that question. No inquiry report has been published yet, and the purpose of appointing the interim committee was to ensure that the corruption allegations are looked into. That was what Mr. Varankulsuri said. Also, Mr. Jayasekara said that usually $17 million is earned during a Indian tour. However, this time around it has gone down to $3 million USD. You have approximately around 1 minute to ask these questions very quickly before we move on to the journalist round.
Yeah, our mandate, as far as I know, is not to probe into corruption, and that report was done independently by the Ministry of Sports, appointed by the minister himself. So that is off our hands, and he has appointed the 3 lawyers to do the report and make the submission.
In terms of the 17 million to reducing to 3 million, and you're also the head of the tour organizing committee.
Yes, yes. You know, it all depends if it's a future tours program or if it's outside. You know, this is not actually within the FTP. It was outside, so we had to negotiate, and at that time there were so many issues, so we got the best deal outside the normal contracted 10 sports. We went to Sony and managed to get a higher rate, $3 million.
Thank you very much. you want to say something? I can give you 10 more seconds, Mr. Gunasekara.
Yeah, so whatever we have got, what we try to do is to cut the wastage and look at the expenditure and all the areas. So professionally take a overall look to systematize the plan in going forward by strategizing how we can look at each area, in a feasible way.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gunasekara. Let me introduce our journalists this evening. On to my immediate right is Nadir Majid. Immediate left is Stephanie Lazarus. And on to my far left is Faraz Shaukat Ali. I'm seeing it tonight, Faraz, with the file, and I'm a bit nervous and curious to know what exactly is there. But I'll leave it during your session to pose the questions to our panelists. So let's start off with Faraz.
Thank you. Question to Mr. Ajit Jayasekara. Can you tell me, when you left the board, what was the salary bill like?
Salary bill was approximately 22 million per month.
So making that around 260 million a year?
Correct.
We had Mr. Sumitipala on one of our shows during the week. He said that it's about 500 million. Is that including the players?
Incorrect. No, he mentioned, I think, about 300 employees and 500 million salary bill, which is totally false.
So he's making
I just told you it's about 22 million per month. And also these 300 employees is also a wrong figure.
So what is the right figure?
The right figure is around 230, 240.
Do you need so many people to manage about 20 people?
Once again, I tell you, this is the perception.
Yeah.
People think that 230 people are in that building at 35 Maitland Place. No. More than 60% are out at various venues, coaches island-wide, coaching staff, ground staff. So most of them are out of Sri Lanka cricket. They try to project that there are 300 people inside that place.
How many people are at 35 Maitland?
At 35 Maitland Place, I don't think there would be more than 75, 80.
Is it too much? Is it top heavy?
Well, all depends. I mean, I don't have the figures to go into departments.
No.
But cricket operations department is fairly large. Then the admin and the IT, marketing are very, very small numbers there.
What's the ratio between what's paid on admin and what the players earn? What's the ratio?
Oh, no comparison. I can tell you, we are one of the 10 full members of the ICC, and I was the CEO, and I was getting a salary of less than $2,000.
Okay, but how much, let's say Kumar Sangakkara, how much, not in numbers, but in comparison to, say, an Australian cricketer, what would Mr. Sangakkara be getting? Would he be on par? Or would he be below that?
Wouldn't be on par with Australia, because there's a very much higher standard of living, but well above the rates or the salaries that people get anywhere in the country.
Thank you.
Stephanie?
Mr. Gunasekara, there have been reports that have emerged that Mr. Asanga Seneviratne's nominations applications for the SLC elections have been rejected, even though there were no objections filed. What would you like to say about that?
Actually, I have no idea. I'm a bit ignorant when it comes to elections and rules and regulations of the sports ministry. So I really can't comment on that. I've never come forward as a contestant or got involved in elections, so I really have no idea as to why his application was rejected. But I know recently they brought in a rule that one has to serve in the EXCO for 2 years. So I'm not sure whether it was the case that his application got rejected. But to be very honest, I am out of that area.
But there have been many members whose applications are not rejected, but who have not served in the EXCO for 2 years. What would you like to say about that?
But that's handled by the Ministry of Sports. So it's outside the interim committee jurisdiction to look at those areas.
What about Mr. Jayasekara? Can he answer this question?
Yeah, what's that?
You want to answer that question?
Regarding?
Stephen is asking.
Mr. Asanga Seneviratne's applications were rejected for the SLC elections, even though objections weren't filed against him?
It was rejected on the grounds that he did not serve on the executive committee for 2 years within the last 15 years.
But haven't there been members who have not...
Are you right? I've got a note here that says that he served on the executive committee from...
Indeed he did.
Sorry?
Indeed he did.
January 2012 to April 13, 16 months.
He has more than 24 months.
He's got 34 months from my reckoning.
You're correct.
So why was he...
I wouldn't know.
But isn't that unfair?
It is unfair.
He's obviously against the rules and regulations.
Yes.
So clearly my three-wheel drive is right. Yapalina hasn't reached Maitland Crescent.
It's not Maitland Crescent.
Well, Maitland
it's at
Place.
the ministry.
Pardon?
Ministry.
Okay.
Yapalina hasn't reached the racecourse, you mean?
Probably.
Just up the road.
Mr. Varnakulasuri, I'd like to pose this question to you. I'm not certain if these figures are correct because I'm taking it off a media report, but also from a cricket news website based in India. It says that, I'd like your input on this as well, Mr. Jayasekara. It says that when the interim committee, the current interim committee took over, the SLC was 200 million rupees plus in the red, and 7.6 million US dollars in debt to the ICC and Bank of Ceylon. It says that now, under the current interim committee, we are 200 million plus in the green, and there are reserves of 4.6 million US dollars. Mr. Gunasekara, I'd like you to confirm if this is true, and Mr. Varnakulasuri, I'd like you to respond. You were talking about, because you were referring to inefficiencies even in the current interim committee, so I'd like your response to this.
No, I don't want to know whether figures are correct.
Yeah,
I think it is
are these figures correct?
It is somewhat accurate for sure, but you know, you have to also give it from the angle that these were some of the, not some, but most of the monies were coming on tours that we've had before.
Okay.
So, but the question is that we managed it in a way that we were able to settle the loans, and then also we have had 3 tours, but all 3 were not money-making tours. For example, West Indies, like Mr. Ajit Jayasekara said, you know, it was a tour where we don't have the television broadcasting rights, you know, lucrative, you know, payouts for Pakistan and India. India in particular, you get something significant. So it's all about managing the funds that you get, you know, in a very prudent, diligent way, and that is how we've been able to, you know, kind of go into the green that you said.
I believe Kushil answered that question. The reason was the tours, and some tours brought in a lot of money, and also I believe after the interim committee was appointed, we signed the television contract with 10 Sports, and that money also would have
not during our time.
No, okay.
It was signed before.
Before,
but
so
the money came in
afterwards.
Yeah, money comes depending on the tours.
On the tours. Okay.
So that was signed. The money also came in depending on the tours, and some tours there was very large profit. Some tours did not have so many. But I agree with Kushil. I think they have managed. Because from what I know, from what I heard, the interim committee has managed the income very well, and that is the reason why there was this surplus.
Mr. Jayasekara, what do you have to say about that? Do you think the interim committee has managed the money very well?
Well, I can't comment on how they have managed the money, but the monies that came in for them to manage were monies that were due long before the interim committee came in. So what is there for you to think that the executive committee, if it continued, they wouldn't have managed?
So do you feel that this, for example, that this statistic, because the article that I was reading is quite harsh towards the previous committee, do you think that this statistic is being unfairly used?
It is being
against
used.
Obviously, I believe there was no reason for interim committee to be appointed. You know, when the ministers suddenly think that, you know, previous administration, maybe the politicians, maybe the politics, they must go. But the report, the corruption report is not out. We don't know what is there, what is in there. And if there was any allegations against, say, a person like Upada Dharmadas or Janta Dharmadas, they would have come out with it, and they are contesting the election. So
Mr. Gunasekara, do you agree? Was there no need for an interim committee at all?
I believe we should never have an interim committee.
Mr. Gunasekara the opportunity to answer that question.
Well, I don't know why the interim committees keep coming back. As I said, if it is the current President Siddharth, he has been in 7. I have been in 4. So we are like standby group that has to come and basically do some repair work. But my point is that whoever who comes, has to basically improve the game of cricket administration and manage the finances, effectively. That is all I can say.
Yeah.
I am not here to pass judgment on A or B.
Yeah, I believe the interim commission appointed when there's change the political scenario, when the ministers change, they want their own people run the administration of cricket, run cricket. So
Mr. it's funny you say that they want their own people to run it, because no matter who the ministers, even when ministers change, I mean, more often than not you see the same faces in Sri Lanka.
No, but now say for D.S. De Silva, his interim committee was the worst, the most corrupt interim committee we have ever come across.
Mr. Anakulsu, you have to take responsibility.
Yeah, I'm taking responsibility. I know that issue is very well known.
I was the CEO during that period. I think it's unfair to use that.
But I believe that is very well known. But I personally believe that it was.
Mr. Jayasekara, what do you
I have the highest respect for Mr. Ajit Jayasekara, but what DSL
First, give a second to Mr.
Jayasekara to finish.
No, what I'm trying to say. So therefore, at that time, DSL was appointed mainly because of his connection with the president.
Right. Okay. Mr. Jayasekara, you can respond to that.
Well, first, Mr. Gunasekara said that they were brought in to do repair work. I do not think repair work was necessary at that time, and the word corruption is used fairly liberally, and then they take the treasurer who handled the funds back into the interim committee, and another individual who was ultimately investigated by the ICC anti-corruption unit.
Radhi, for a second.
Faraz, can I ask you then, Mr. Jayasekara, Kumar Sangakkara, the spirit of Cowdrey lecture, he says, and I quote, partisan cronies have led to corruption. True?
No,
agreed?
I don't agree.
He spoke for an hour.
Yes, and he spoke for 2 minutes, on
and
corruption.
that is what has captured the imagination of the public.
That is because that is what everyone waited for. They wanted someone, a public figure like Kumar Sangakkara, on a public occasion like that, to come out with something, and then they cheered. But they did not cheer him for the content, for the diction, the presentation.
I think we did. Everybody was very proud of Mr. Sangakkara's
people
speech.
are proud of him, but they caught hold of that 2 minutes that he spoke about cronyism,
because
corruption.
he obviously spoke about something that was on everybody's mind.
Everybody's perception.
Presidents and elected executive committees would come and go. Government-picked interim committees would be appointed and dissolved. And he spent 2 minutes, which is a long time, about this one subject. I mean, he spent 58 minutes talking about everything else. So obviously he touched a raw nerve.
He touched a raw nerve, yes. And also...
He risked his contract, possibly.
No, there was no risk to his contract. Of course, although he was in breach of his contract.
So why wasn't action taken, Mr. Jayasekara?
Sorry?
Why wasn't action taken against Kumar Sangakkara for making such a statement if it was false at that time?
Well, we considered taking action.
And
but
they decided not to?
Then they decided not to.
What was the reason?
Because people will believe Sangakkara and not the cricket board.
Or is it because his talent was so good that Sri Lanka cricket couldn't possibly leave him out?
Probably.
Mr. Jayasekara, what you have to say, you said something interesting about perception. So you're maintaining the position that when people talk about corruption at Sri Lanka cricket, that it's merely a perception and that there actually isn't any cronyism or corruption or misappropriation of funds at SLC.
The perception is corruption but I think it's an unfair perception.
Mr. Gunasekara, I'd like to ask you to respond to a point a very pertinent point that Mr. Jayasekara raised regarding the treasurer of Sri Lanka Cricket, Mr. Nuski Mohammed, who was in the Exco and is now in the interim committee as well. The former sports minister Navin Dissanayake was speaking a lot about corruption at SLC. Why would he have the man who handled the funds in the former Exco as the treasurer in the interim committee as well?
Well, I have no idea myself why it was the case.
But being a member of the interim committee of which he is also a part, does it concern you?
Well, I mean, this is something that was spoken a lot by outsiders. You know, one of the things that we had to face all the time is this question being posed to us. We really had no say because it was the minister's choice. Not only him, then there was also Mr. Varnavir on the other side. You know, both were previous Exco members. So he had constituted the members in terms of forming the interim committee, and you know, we had to do with whatever or whoever was in the group. But I'm also made to understand that he's a very clever kind of treasurer. So I'm not really sure what happened before.
Because we're talking a lot about financial management,
yeah.
And Mr. Varnakula Surya commended the financial management of the current interim committee. Mr. Mohammed was the treasurer of the former executive committee. He's also the treasurer of the current interim committee.
No, he's not the treasurer.
Sorry, not the but he's also...
So we have a new treasurer, who is Lucille Vijayavardhana.
So, sorry.
And he's the one who's managing it, but I think Nuski is also part of the finance committee. Part of the finance committee, but he is not the one who's looking after the treasury, so to say.
So when you say that you're doing repair work, is he pointing out the damage that was caused previously and you're repairing it?
You know,
I would say they are nothing to repair.
They're nothing to repair.
No, I quite disagree with him. There are many areas where they lack a lot of professionalism, because I feel there is no stability in terms of the...
But is the reason that there is no stability because there is continuous political interference in terms of interim committees being appointed? They don't let the process take place.
That is not only the case. For example, you know, all the staff are on contracts. You know, so when the contract is nearing its expiry, you know, people campaign, canvass, and do all kinds of things. So they have these individuals are also aligned to various groups. So that itself does not bring the kind of consistency. Or imagine if you were working here and you're on a contract, and you know, you are always trying to do your best, but you never know if you're not on the right side and someone else comes in, you know, you can get also out of the picture.
But it still happens. It still happens. They are aligned even to the members of the interim committee.
Mr. Varnakula Surya, you have to share thoughts on that?
Yeah, now my position is that Mr. Jayasekara says corruption is only a perception. There is no corruption, it's only a public perception. Now, how did the public, now people like us, who have been watching cricket from the time when we went to school, think that the cricket board is corrupt? During the time Mr. Mallasekara was the chairman of the interim committee, Mr. Lakshman Kiriyalla, then Minister of Sports, appointed me as the chairman to probe into the allegation of corruptions against the previous administration. He produced a book, nearly 500 pages, and gave it to the minister to take action. Unfortunately, there were some political changes, and minister lost his position as the sports minister, and they could not take action. I found the entire operation of building Dambulla Stadium, where Dambulla Stadium was built on a land which does not belong to the cricket board, and the huge amount of money that was spent without any tenders, and every aspect of the cricket board where I inquired, I found there is wheeler dealing and there is corruption, there are various kinds of transactions which are not accountable. And I produced this report, As a lawyer, then I was not President's Counsel. I produced report and no action was taken. But then what happened was thereafter this another interim committee was appointed, elections were held and someone else got elected. But this is not a perception. Now, for instance, I remember, whether you know about the Nimbus deal, where one of the former ministers entered into a contract with Nimbus, the television producer, who has never paid the cricket board the monies that were due, and they were blacklisted. The minister insisted to remove that position, and then gave the contract to him on a certain Indian tour. Now, whenever we don't have money, we always appeal to India, and then we play matches. And what happened? Tour which was worth $11 million was given to Nimbus of 6 million, and only they tendered the bid. And so out of that, there was a story all over that certain substantial portion of money was given to the authorities, whoever the minister or the interim committee. I do
Thank you very much, Mr. Warakul Surya. Faz, we need to go for a short commercial break now, and when we come back, we will discuss more about the future of Sri Lanka cricket. Mr. Warakul Surya says there is corruption. Mr. Jayasekara says corruption is only a mere perception, and Mr. Gunasekara says that the interim committee was appointed to do some repair work. We'll have more with these three gentlemen after the short commercial break. Stay connected, stay with Face the Nation. Welcome back. This is Face the Nation. We start off the third round with Mr. Hemant Warakul Surya, President's Counsel, and joining us this evening as a cricket fan. Mr. Warakul Surya, initially you said that there were inefficiencies that prevailed in Sri Lanka cricket, and then you said that you commend the efforts of the present interim committee, and then you go on to say that corruption prevails. I want to know your position, Mr.
About the present interim committee, what I said was they have managed the income that from the tours which was organized by the previous interim committee. They have managed, and they have cut down certain unnecessary expenditure, I admit. But then that doesn't mean that everything is hunky-dory. We must be in a position to have elections. We must democratically elect people, and so that they be accountable to the clubs, and then we'll have a proper administration. The interim committees are ad hoc arrangements made by the ministers for his personal political ambitions, to satisfy his personal political goals. Now, which is incorrect. I believe right throughout our cricket was administered by interim committee, then elected committees. So my position is, I say this is not a perception. There are so much of information about corruption. In fact, one of the previous presidents wanted to give me a dossier about corrupt activities and wanted me to file action against the previous interim committee chairman.
Mr. Warakul Surya, will democracy lead to more corruption at Sri Lanka cricket?
Yes, democracy on all countries, most of the countries leads to corruption. No? Democracy, because I believe now what has happened is good governance also.
Again, contradicts your earlier statement about having a democratic election at Sri Lanka
democratic election there, but the corruption must be prevented by other instruments, like certain laws must be changed, certain people must be in charge. Now, for instance, I believe the Sri Lanka cricket monies should be the auditing should be done by the Auditor General. And they must also bring in this conception of public property, so that no person can cheat and embezzle money. If they do so, they will be remanded under the public property law. So there are other ways and means. All countries, there are most democratic countries, there is corruption, but there are other mechanisms. There are laws that have been introduced to prevent or minimize corruption. You can't completely eliminate corruption, whether it's democracy or a dictatorship.
Mr. Warakul Surya, interestingly, cricket elections are very sought after by powerful individuals in the business community in Sri Lanka. Why are they fighting for this position?
Maybe because of prestige.
Is it very lucrative?
Maybe because of prestige. Maybe also because of money. Because you know, if you're the chairman of the cricket board, then you know various things, you know, like the television rights, various other things can be done, and you know you can appoint your own people, and you can haphazardly increase their salaries. There is no salary structure, there is no employment criteria. You can employ a person even who has not even got through the ordinary level into an important position. That is happening.
Thank you very much, Mr. Surya. I now move on to Mr. Kushal Gunasekara, Vice President of the Sri Lanka Cricket Interim Committee. Mr. Gunasekara, you said that an independent panel submitted a report to the Sports Minister regarding the corruption that was supposedly taking place at Sri Lanka Cricket. Were you able to see this particular report in question, Mr. Gunasekara?
It was distributed to all of us, and I didn't really go through the entire report.
I'm sure you read at least the executive summary of that report in question.
Yeah, there are certain areas that they have highlighted, but they did interview everyone, past administrators, present, and the interim committee members, and they had submitted the report to the Minister of Sports. It is with the current minister, and I hear that on the 19th, which is tomorrow, I think, that they are going to table that in Parliament.
What were the highlights of this particular report in question, Mr. Gunasekara?
Well, there were some irregularities. I don't want to go into details, but I mean, I don't agree with Mr. Jayasekara when he says that, you know, we are not doing any repair work. We are certainly doing some repair work in many areas. You know, I mean, at the end of the day, you know, I'll take a good example. It's a small example, but let's see. Now we've won so many trophies, you know, at Sri Lanka Cricket, which is very prestigious. The cricketers have sweated so very hard. It's brought a lot of pride to the nation. And look at those trophies. They are tucked into various corners in the auditorium, gathering dust. You know, it pains the heart of so many cricketers who come and see them just being dumped into corners, even the 1996 World Cup or the 2014 T20 World Cup. So for us, you know, we took this on, and we went to the Sri Lanka Institute of Architects and said...
So you all literally did some repair work?
Obviously. So we went to Sri Lanka Institute of Architects and said, look, these trophies have to be exhibited beautifully at the entrance to Sri Lanka Cricket, so that the public can actually view. Not only the public, even the foreign visitors who are cricket lovers, when they come in, they would like to see this. So they ran a competition amongst the fifth year students and came up with a beautiful design.
Again, Mr. Gunasekara, my question to you is, how does something of this sort, a literal repair work taking place at Sri Lanka Cricket, help the future of Sri Lanka Cricket as a whole?
See, we have to have a vision, no? We need to...
Is the vision repairing what is not right at Sri Lanka Cricket, or is it repairing the infrastructure?
No, it's putting the systems right. It's being professional. It's being maintaining standards, you know, benchmarking, discipline, you know, being organized, you know. So those are the things, and you got to go after, you know, a certain itinerary in terms of a business plan. And at the end, you know, you're accountable for what you did while you were in office, you know. So that is what is important. When you see something that you need to upgrade, you have to go there.
Mr. Gunasekara, you sound like one of the former presidents of Sri Lanka who is very much involved in infrastructure development. But my question to you is about the vision of Sri Lanka Cricket at the end of the day. What is the future going to be like of Sri Lanka Cricket in the next few years or so?
I think the future is, in my opinion, if it is again managed well, the future of Sri Lanka Cricket will never be, you know, short of where we want to see Sri Lanka Cricket reach. If you take the talent again, you know, island-wide, there is huge talent in rural areas. You know, I think this interim committee has identified about 10 to 12 youngsters, you know, who have been given the chance to gain national selection. Take Milinda Sidiwardana, for example. He's 27, 28. it's way past his age to get into the national side, and he's performing well. So you need to send that message across to all of the cricketers who's aspiring to play for Sri Lanka, that if they perform well, it's not whom you know, it's how well you play the game.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gunasekara. I now move on to Mr. Ajit Jayasekara, former CEO of Sri Lanka Cricket. Ms. Jayasekara, Faraz brought in this question about the statement that was made by Kumar Sangakkara in London. My question to you is, who is at fault? Is it Kumar Sangakkara, or is it the cricket administrators who did not penalize him at that time?
Who did not?
Who is at fault? Is it Kumar Sangakkara for making that statement, or the cricket authorities for not penalizing him after making that statement?
Perhaps not penalizing him. We thought discretion was the better part of valor, and we did not consider taking any action. Did
that not set a bad precedent for the future of the game?
Probably it does, but in other areas we tightened up. And
tighten up in what sense?
In the sense, now we made a mistake in allowing him, a current player, to go to a public place like that, because authority was sought from the interim committee at that time, and the interim committee graciously gave the authority for him to go ahead and speak at this occasion. It's a great occasion, no doubt, but well, after having given the authority, we thought, it's better not to, although he was in the breach of his contract, speaking against the cricket board, we thought it's better not, we'll let it pass.
Ms. Jayasekara, with regard to the repair work that Mr. Gunasekara was referring to, you strongly disagree that there was repair work to be done. However, Mr. Varnakulasuri is also of the opinion that there was corruption at Sri Lanka Cricket, and many officers, even in Parliament, have voiced concern about the corruption taking place at Sri Lanka Cricket. However, you disagree. Why?
Well, Mr. Varnakulasuri spoke about the inquiry that he conducted. That was corruption when Mr. Vijayamalasekara came. He himself said that. When Mr. Vijayamalasekara came in, the minister wanted him to probe into the previous committee's misdeeds or whatever. But I'm not sure whether he has been involved in an exercise like that. It's a very broad term you're using, corruption. I mean, are there any specifics that you want to
Let me drag your attention to what happened after 2013. I'm not talking about the tenure in which that you acted as a CEO. After 2013, was there irregularities taking place at Sri Lanka Cricket? Let me put it in a very subtle way.
Okay.
Was there irregularities taking place at Sri Lanka Cricket after 2013? Now it's nearly 2 years.
I doubt it. I doubt it. You have to be specific and ask for some specific incident, and then I will give you the answer. Because they were doing their, they were administering quite normally, and there was no corruption.
Mrs. Jayasekara, one of the contestants this time around, contesting the January 3rd, 2016 election, has had issues relating to betting. And this particular individual in question is, however, contesting the elections on the 3rd of January next year. Why wasn't his nomination rejected?
I'm sorry, I can't comment on that, because the onus was on the Sports Ministry and to the Director General of Sports to take the decision. So,
let's say he's selected. Will he have a standing at the ICC as the head of Sri Lanka Cricket? You were the former CEO,
yes,
so you would
know. As far as I know, we have got a letter from, actually a letter written by the then President of the ICC, Mr. Ehsan Mani, to Mr. Sumatipala, saying that if ever he is elected as the Sri Lanka representative to the ICC, he will have to go before the Ethics Committee.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jayasekara, for that. We were talking about a contestant. However, Mr. Jayasekara, revealed a name. I will not take responsibility for that particular individual or the name that he mentioned. Let's start off the Q&A from our journalist. Faraz?
Mr. Jayasekara, you said be specific. So let's ask you about the Suryaveva Stadium.
Yes.
Who asked for it to be built? Is there a contract? Who paid? Why haven't you paid the Treasury back? Why hasn't the SEC been paid? These are the specific questions.
Suryaveva Stadium was built by the SLPA, Sri Lanka Ports Authority.
Okay.
And the other two
Is there a
stadiums,
contract between Sri Lanka Cricket and the SLPA?
I believe there is, yes.
But when Dr. Jayasundara wanted the contract, there is no contract forthcoming.
When did Dr. Jayasundara ask for the contract?
When he was, at the time when the Sri Lanka Cricket was looking for a handout from the Treasury. 3.2 billion is the request.
No, I
he
don't
wanted
think
to have the contract.
No, he didn't ask for any contract, but he had a hearing with the SLPA, with the SEC, and with SLC.
Faraz, I hope you have the documents to prove your claim, because we cannot show it to our viewers. I hope you take responsibility for the question that you're posing.
I do.
Go ahead, Faraz.
So there is no contract. Who paid whom in the end, or is that also up in air?
No, actually a lot of people have asked about this building the stadium at Suryaveva.
Yeah.
When the World Cup, Cricket World Cup 2011 was hosted jointly by India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka and Bangladesh.
Yeah.
We were assigned 8 matches to be played in 2 stadiums. When Pakistan did not, when the ICC decided that they were not going to play in Pakistan, they reallocated the matches. And we had to host 12 matches in 3 stadiums. It was very specific.
Okay.
So 12 matches in 3 stadiums. So we had already planned on Premadasa, expanding Premadasa, rebuilding or completing Pallekele, and the third venue was Hambantota, because we got a 47-acre land from the government.
So Dambulla wasn't in
no,
the running?
Dambulla could not be considered, because at that time we started construction in 2009. That particular year we had to play 15 day-night matches to meet our commitment to the television company, 10 Sports. Therefore, Dambulla was the only stadium available with lights. So we had to play all those matches at Dambulla. Therefore, Dambulla could not be used.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jayasekara. I want to pose a question to Mr. Kushal Gunasekara, the Vice President of Sri Lanka Cricket Interim Committee. I'm posing this question to you, Mr. Gunasekara, as an individual who is involved in a lot of volunteering work, and you have a lot of love for cricket as well. Are you satisfied with the present candidates who are contesting the elections? Because we see 2 individuals who've been locking horns with each other over the last few years or so, contesting from the same camp this time around, quite interestingly. Are you satisfied with the candidates who are contesting the elections?
Shamir, I'm not going to get dragged into a political kind of background.
As an individual, you've loved the game for some time.
I'm not here to pass judgment on A or B. All I'm saying is that, unfortunately, when it's Sri Lankan politics, whether it's the government or whether it's Sri Lanka cricket, it gets into a very unpleasant situation, you know, and at the end it is cricket that suffers. Because
and then you hug each other after locking horns with each other.
Well, I sincerely hope so, with loving kindness, but you know, all I can say is that when you get into camps, you know, sometimes and most times I feel the deserving party can be, you know, ruled out in terms of support. For example, if you support me, you know, and you're not the most deserving in terms of getting a grant, you know, I may favor that because you got me into office. So somebody, who comes, has to be very courageous, brave, to be impartial if cricket is to go forward.
Mr. Varankur Surya must be brave and impartial. Will that happen if things move on like this? We have 2 individuals who are locking horns again, as I said before, with each other for some time, contesting from the same camp. Suddenly,
they have
amend their ways, and now they want to contest another person whom they think is the enemy. So therefore they have got together and want to contest and defeat the other person. This happens not only in cricket, in politics. Today you see, you hear one person berating the president, next day he is there, he is appointed, and he defeated, and he appointed the parliament and becomes the minister.
How ethical is this, Mr.
No, the question of ethics in democracy and elections is very, very difficult to pronounce, because for you and me, for ordinary individuals, this is not ethical at all. But then when the people who have to vote, if they vote for such kind of individual, now even these elections, if the clubs vote for them, they'll become the president and the vice president. And I feel they were then on the other hand, the same family, right? Two brothers are contesting on either side. How ethical that is, I do not know, but then that is what we can see and what we can observe. And the question of in a democracy, all these possible, and electing members to the cricket committee, this is possible. I see I have no problem. My problem is whether when they get appointed after all these fights, are they really sincerely interested in improving cricket or interested in making money?
Right, Faraz, Nadim, I'll get back to you in a minute. I want to give an opportunity to Faraz to pose a question.
Courageous, brave, impartial, and perhaps corruption-free. Can we only achieve this if we elect Ranatunga Dharmadasa, Sumitipala? Is that all there is here in this country?
You're asking me, Faraz?
Yes, sorry.
No, I don't think I can answer that question, because if I say that you cannot expect, then we are imputing that they are corrupt, imputing they are inefficient.
Not at all, no. What I'm saying is,
I believe the reason for that, I believe, is also the former minister amended the constitution of the cricket board and made it possible only for 2 people or 3 people who have been immediately serving the executive committee contest. Now these are all wrong. These are not democratic. Now that was done with a design in order to keep his people in the interim committee and also in the committees that would function after elections. So therefore, many people now say people cannot contest because they don't qualify.
But the Vetimunis are always in the interim committee.
No, not Vetamuni. I'm talking of Vetamuni, not contest. No.
Yes,
I'm talking of the elections. So they cannot contest. Now, as you say, Asaka Senratna was disqualified. We don't know the reason.
Mr. Gunasekara said that he does not want to contest an election.
I see.
Yeah.
What about Mr. Jayasekara? Do you want to comment on this? Why is it that it's all these 2 or 3 families? How come?
Well, specifically not just 2 or 3 families. Anyone is eligible.
But like Mr. Varnakulesuri says, the rules are so sort of fixed.
Yeah, but there
so
are
tight.
The rules are not as tight as restricting them to 2 or 3 families.
But here we have Mr. Seniviratne who's making a valiant attempt to get in there, but he can't because he's been precluded for no apparent reason.
Yeah, so like that many people can...
they can try, but then he's just been... he's wealthy enough too.
Mr. Seniviratne was not kept out to make room for the people that you mentioned, 2 or 3
like
families.
the 18th Amendment, you prevent another person from contesting.
So do you think that, like they are considering a new constitution for the country,
I believe the cricket board constitution must be amended. A new constitution. All these because the present constitution, which has narrowed the possibility of candidates contesting. So these wrong. I believe this is done by the former minister in order to keep his people in the interim committee and also in the cricket board.
I know as a lawyer you shouldn't be saying these professional things, but can I just ask you, do you think Mr. Seniviratne has a fundamental rights case?
I have not examined his position whether he is eligible, but I personally feel if if he has
34
been
months.
in the interim committee or in the executive committee, he must file a case, definitely, not a fundamental rights case, because these are government institution. He must go to the district court and get an enjoining order preventing them.
I think we are giving Mr. some free legal advice.
Free legal advice. Here we go, Asanga.
But again, for us, your question should be directed not as an opinion, I must tell you. Unfortunately, it should be a question that
It's a question. It's a question.
Right.
Sorry, Mr. Mr.
Whether the remedy, what the outcome of the remedy cannot say. I have not exempt the papers, but he has a remedy.
Mr. Gunasekara, yes, I'll give you 30 seconds.
I personally think the time has come to change the constitution.
Yes, definitely.
Because, for example, if you look at the structure, Sri Lanka's population is about 21 million, say. We have 142 votes. And then if you look at India, India has 1 billion people and 42 votes. And I think Pakistan had the same problem, which has now been amended. So I think.
Are you saying that we should have less voting members?
I think so, definitely.
What would that accomplish, though?
Well, I think if you go provinces and the clubs, you know, and here, say premier clubs, for example, they have 2 votes. Maybe, you know, look at from that angle. Anyway, there has been some study on this constitutional change, because otherwise, you know, if you have 142 votes, there'll always be both sides. Whoever they are, they will try to buy the votes. You know, so the clubs also will work on the premise that if I support.
But what's to say that if you reduce the number of clubs that are voting and you restrict it to just premier clubs?
No, not only premier clubs,
okay,
but of course there are others. But 142 is too huge. You know, it's too huge.
But
So
we have got the biggest cabinet.
Mr. Jayasekara, what do you have to say about that? Do you
very
think that
small country, we have
142
got
clubs
biggest
is
cabinet.
too many, that we should reduce?
Well, the system is in place, and to change the constitution of the cricket board of Sri Lanka Cricket, you have to have an extraordinary general meeting where you have the stakeholders, and stakeholders, they defend their rights very, very tightly. So I don't know how they are going to overcome that situation. Stakeholders will never agree to changing what they have right now.
So that could also lead to the same issue, that only a certain group of people will always be coming forward. Probably if you take the last 20 years, it's the same administrators, whether it's you know, candidates coming through elections or interim committees. It's them who coming. So maybe it's time to look at, I mean, like Faraz said, aren't there top corporate, you know, personalities who can come in and say, let's do good for Sri Lanka cricket. What is the way forward? How do we do it? That is the issue.
Now you can amend the constitution preventing a person from contesting the post more than 2 times.
We had a viewer on Newsline a few days ago who suggested that perhaps the best way forward would be to have an auction of these positions, and that if they were corporate bidders, then they would have to start the bidding at 100 million rupees. But if they were individual bidders, they could bid at whatever they wanted.
But there is another school of thought, that whoever the executive committee that comes in, to have a board of governors on top, you know, who are like top financial experts, a legal personality, probably a past captain of 10 years ago, to have them on board as well, like a monitoring evaluation kind of situation.
So you're saying something like have the Constitutional Council appoint an independent cricket commission as well, in addition to Sri Lanka cricket?
It's like a Congress and Senate, you know, and then the president. But
who will have the final say, Mr. Gunasekara?
No, I'm saying the board of governors can only look at how the monies are being administered.
So you're saying oversight?
Yeah, oversee, you know, say 10 million and above, you know, they can probably take a look and say, you know, it's really worth giving it here or there, or how does it happen?
Mr. Jayasekara, do you think that there's a need for greater oversight of Sri Lanka cricket?
Whether there's a need or not, what I told earlier stands, because the stakeholders will have to pass a new constitution with a 2/3 majority.
And basically the reality is that...
The reality Reality
no one is
that.
ever going to get that 2/3 majority, and therefore we're
Unless
not
they
going to
find some other way, I don't know, I don't have any knowledge
But
of
apparently
that.
Pakistan found a way forward. They had a similar problem, like us, so many votes. But they finally amended the constitution.
But the Pakistan Cricket Board, to date, is still facing allegations of corruption in spite of all the changes that
Yes,
they've made.
I mean, look at what is happening to West Indies, for that matter.
Sorry?
Mr. Jayasekara, who will have the final say after the 3rd of January elections? Let's say someone is appointed as the chairman of Sri Lanka Cricket.
Yeah.
Who will have the final say? Is it the Minister of Sports or is it the chairman of Sri Lanka Cricket in terms
The President of Sri Lanka Cricket will have the final say.
However, we saw a few years ago when the chairman of Sri Lanka Cricket refused to allow the players to go for the Indian Premier League. The then captain, went to the president and got that decision reversed. My question to you is, will the sports minister or even the president have a say about governance at Sri Lanka Cricket if a committee is appointed democratically on the 3rd of January?
Well, ideally it shouldn't be so, but you can't count it out.
So political influence has always been exerted on Sri Lanka cricket over the last few years?
Not really. Not really.
But
In
I just
what
gave
way?
you instance.
What
You
way?
asked me for a specific incident to bring out, so I gave you a specific incident. Now,
In what way political influence?
What happened a few years ago in the Indian Premier League? Individuals were not allowed by the then chairman of Sri Lanka Cricket. However, the captain went to the president.
It could have been a one-off thing. It could have been a one-off thing, and I would fault the players for doing a thing like that. But then, isn't
Sri Lanka the only place where, after the team is selected, the minister can change the team?
Precisely.
I mean, I don't see the British Minister of Sport
he does not
telling the English cricket people to change the team.
he does not normally change the team.
But he can do, that's the point.
No, he appoints the selectors are appointed by the minister.
Correct. But after
They
the team
select,
is,
and it's a mere formality to get his signature.
but
That's
it's
all.
not really,
No,
is
I
it?
don't know why there should be a mere formality.
Why should
there has been
the sports
instances
law, the sports law says that.
Yeah, that's right. So
Selectors-
I mean the sports law.
the
Mr.
same
Jayasekara,
thing.
I want your personal opinion on this. True, the reality is that maybe the minister does not, but he does have the ability to. In your opinion,
yes,
as a
several
person
times.
who has been in cricket administration for so long, as a fan of the game, as a cricket loving person, do you feel that this needs to be changed? That the
Yes.
sports law has to be changed, and that the sports
Where the
minister should
selection,
not be
because
allowed to.
that's the only link we have with getting involved, with the minister getting involved, because he has to approve it.
And you think that should, you think that in a European world that
In the
should
ideal
not
world,
happen?
yes, it should be. But
Thank you very much, Nadeem. I have to leave you at that. Stephanie, one question for you.
Yes. Mr. Gunasekara, we've spoken about equality and empowering women and all of that, but very little has been done in Sri Lanka cricket itself. There is no affirmative action or quota for women to be elected in Sri Lanka cricket or even in the interim committee. And also, if you can speak a little bit about the fate of the women's cricket and the team per se, and the national
I
team
think
per se.
women's cricket is gaining momentum. If I see, over the years, it's come a long way. I mean, I like your idea of having a lady on the interim committee or elected, which might be a good thing to do, because there is a lot of women's cricket that is being empowered now. So all we can do is to consolidate that position and make them go from strength to strength. If you look back 2-3 years ago to where the women's cricket was, and today it's gained a huge upliftment in terms of their cricketing abilities.
Mr. Gunasekara, we spoke of women's cricket. I just want to drag your attention. A few months ago, there was a report saying that Sri Lankan women cricketers had to give sexual favors to certain coaches, and we're talking about women's cricket. So I just want to drag your attention to that. Any substantial evidence about this, or even a way forward in terms of?
There were reports of that nature, but no one is guilty until it's proven. There was, but nothing really to substantiate that. So I don't think it went beyond what we have actually heard, other than change. There were some changes that took place in terms of the coaching management.
But there was a change made.
Yeah, I think there was a change made.
Is it because the women's national team is poorly represented in the SLC for them to even voice their opinion over these issues?
I mean, there's always room for improvement, but I think it's getting better all the time. You know, again, it depends on how well you manage, you know, how well professionally you look at the planning. I think it can only get better, you know, if you really focus in terms of, you know, giving the ladies a chance to come up. I mean, like, look at other countries, you know, how they structure it beautifully. It's all about, you know, development of cricket. It's not only, you know, looking at the funding aspect, but just looking at, you know, bringing trainers, bringing, you know, psychologists, you know, making them understand soft skills programs, for example, say computers, English, business.
So has the interim committee done any repair work in terms of empowering the women?
We have. Actually, we brought in a sports psychologist, and he's done some work there. And then we have a soft skills program.
So why isn't there any quota?
We have to leave at that, unfortunately, because we need to move on to the final round. You should have posed these questions before. Very good questions, but unfortunately time is running out. We're now going for a short commercial break. When we come back, it's the final round. We are speaking to Mr. Hemantha Warnakulasuriya, Mr. Ajit Jayasekara, as well as Mr. Kushal Gunasekara. After this break, we meet up the final round. This is Face the Nation. Welcome back. This is Face the Nation. The final round, we start off with President's Counsel, Mr. Hemantha Warnakulasuriya, joining us this evening as a cricket fan. Mr. Warnakulasuriya, we spoke of many issues relating to Sri Lanka cricket. We spoke of the future of Sri Lanka cricket as well. My final question to you is, are you satisfied with the candidates contesting the upcoming elections, and do you think that they can bring in the change required for the future of the game?
I hope they will bring the changes that are required, but I believe the Constitution prevented certain other people from contesting, and as Kushal said, there is always, because of this Constitution, only few families could contest this election, which is very undemocratic. And also in answering, in responding to Mr. Jayasekara about corruption, now it was Mr. C.B. Ratnaik, I believe, who was the former Minister of Sports, who took over the Minister of Sports for a few months, said that Sri Lanka cricket was the most corrupt institution after the police. He openly said that, and everybody thought that he was hero, but he was soon changed, and he no longer was the Minister of Sports. Now, what Kushal said was that the present minister has submitted that report to Parliament. I believe if the report contains any serious allegations of financial misappropriation or financial dealings which can be gone into by the investigators, it must be handed over to the police, not to the Parliament. Parliament they will table it, and the interested parties will report what is favorable to them. So then the third position is that how is that Kumar Sangakkara's position, even before that, everybody from the time this question of $50,000 bribe, which was discussed openly with the tape recording was also available. How is that from that time the Nimbus deal, where there was accusation of 1 million was given, and after that again the recent test matches, there were 3 test matches with India, and we expected to get 12 million, but we got only 1.4 million for all 3 test matches, whereas with Bangladesh they got 1.5 million for one match. The reason is that even the television presenters know that if you oil the machinery, that you can get certain rewards, and therefore in every deal he makes about $2 or $3 million by handing over 1 million, no less than 1 million.
Thank you very much, Mr. Warnakulasuriya, for your final thoughts. I now move on to Mr. Ajit Jayasekara, former CEO of Sri Lanka Cricket. If you oil the machinery, you get the rewards that you require. Has this been the conduct of Sri Lanka cricket over the years, Mr. Jayasekara?
I do not agree, because I have been on the committees, and it's not a small committee, it has also ministry representatives, where we have, we call for tenders, and we evaluate and go for the best possible deal, and there is no back office deals going on. I have been, since 2009, I have been at the cricket board. I think there were two television deals, and no such thing happened. And we got, now for this period 2013 to 2020, we got $60 million based on the FTP. That's why I said in 2017, when the Indian team comes, we are getting $17 million.
Mr. Jayasekara, with regard to the individuals who are contesting the elections this time around, today we heard that a candidate had punched an individual who was representing the Mathur district. Do you think that we have the right candidates contesting the January 3rd elections?
Well, I have only just basically heard about some incident, but there is nothing wrong with the candidates who are contesting the election.
You think we have the right candidates and this is the way forward for Sri Lanka cricket?
Well, we have to go with whoever has done it. They have done it before, and there is no reason that they cannot do it again. That is, to administer the best way possible. And I know they have come forward with the best interest of Sri Lanka cricket at heart.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ajit Jayasekara, for your thoughts as well, former CEO of Sri Lanka Cricket. I now move on to Mr. Kushal Gunasekara, Vice President of the Sri Lanka Cricket Interim Committee. Mr. Gunasekara, unfortunately, I have two questions for you. One, for the first question being, have you all done enough during the last 10 months to take Sri Lanka cricket to the next level? And my second question to you is, do you think that the candidates who are contesting the elections can take Sri Lanka cricket to the next level? Your time starts now.
I think in this very short period of time of 9 months, I actually prepared a list and brought down all what we have done, and there are about 40 points. I know I can't read them all, but I think we've done very well. At least we have left a resourceful SLC, irrespective of how the monies came, so that the next administrators, when they come, they can actually start on a surplus kind of situation. So we have looked at every single area in terms of improving what we can professionally, and I think we have achieved quite a lot given the time constraints. And as for your last question, I think both candidates have done this before many times, I think, and it is up to them to keep improving, and like a government, probably take a manifesto and say this is what we are going to do in the next 2 years, and make sure that they deliver what they promise. And I think they have to keep cricket at heart to make sure that cricket, the game of cricket, goes into reach. If you one thing I must say is, whoever the administrators are, you have to give credit that we have been in 6 finals, over the last 20 years, or well, we got tested 30 years. So we've been in a lot of finals. How that happens is divine. But all I can say is the same candidates coming back can only improve as they know the workings of Sri Lanka cricket administration. So best of luck to them, and I think if they can take it to another level, then they have achieved something.
One final question, Mr. Gunasekara. Do we have the right team playing for Sri Lanka now? You said we have been in many finals. Do we have the right team in place right now to win the next World Cup?
See, I think we are in a transitional period. Obviously, when the two legends leave, It's not easy to fill their, void. But I think we are on the right track because we are giving the signals to the rural cricketers, the outstation cricketers. If you look at now, unlike before, about 11 of them come out of Colombo and only about 4 are within, the city limits. So I think, we have done everything. And the cricketers, if you ask, they are depoliticized. Their minds are free to perform the way they wish. That is the feedback we've got from the cricketers.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gunasekara. We have to leave at that. Mr. Hemantwaran Surya, President's Council, and Mr. Ajit Jayasekara, former CEO of Sri Lanka Cricket, and also Mr. Kushal Gunasekara, Vice President of Sri Lanka Interim Committee. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us this evening. Thank you very much, Nadeem. Thank you very much, Faraz, and thank you very much, Stephanie, for posing questions to our panelists today. A few notes to take back home. Mr. Hemantwaran Surya said laws must change. Mr. Kushal Gunasekara said that there's always room for improvement, and Mr. Ajit Jayasekara said no back office deals were going on in Sri Lanka Cricket, at Sri Lanka Cricket. Today, cricket transformed into a boxing match. So I leave you tonight with a quote from a famous boxer. He said, "Boxing is the ultimate challenge. There is nothing that can compare to testing yourself the way you do every time you step into the ring." Are we boxing with the right people in the right ring? I'll let the people decide. 3rd of January 2016. Take care and good night.